everyone, and welcome to episode 86 of Own the Road with AutoTrader, where we make car stuff simple for Canadians. My name is Jodi, and I'm the editor-in-chief of AutoTrader.
And my name is Dan Alika, and I am AutoTrader's road test editor.
And I'm Sebastien Bell. I'm the associate editor.
I'm Michael Krant. I'm the intern.
He's the intern.
The intern.
So this
Not
is
like that cool movie, though, like with Robert De Niro.
Robert De Niro, the cool movie.
Was it good? I guess I
No,
should.
it was awful.
The funny thing is I've never seen it.
And yet you're judging it.
I was trying to give him, I was trying to pick him up a little bit.
I mean, so this is a very special episode. We've never had all four of us on an episode at the same time.
It's true.
So this is going to be fun and new. So Michael, the intern, joined us in January, and he's going to be with us until December, basically. So a full year. Michael is an aspiring automotive journalist.
Aspiring.
Or current. I mean, you technically are one now, but your bio still says you're aspiring.
Yes.
Does it?
Yeah, the bio on his website.
And Jodi won't change it.
Never. You could be doing this for 20 years, and I'll still call you Michael the intern, the aspiring automotive journalist.
It's not the worst nickname he has.
That's true. There are worse ones, and we come up with new ones all the time.
All made up by Dan.
Well,
All of
you know,
us.
I just, it's endearing. We love them. We're happy. We've had some interns. I always struggle with this because I don't want to pump them up too much, but we've had some interns. They've been okay. But Michael is, he's hardworking, and he cares and it shows in his work. And I think that's important, right? No matter what it is. But I mean, as obviously, in what we do, we like to see it reflected in the work and watching Michael, watching you improve over the last, whatever it's been, 7 months now has been great. And it shows that you care. And that is what anybody wants to see. So, and I think it also is why you're, still here, right? It's like we want to help you in your journey towards.
No, it's true because you have so much potential. That's why I keep that's why I'm keeping you around,
Fair.
right? Because I can see that you have so much more to grow and learn.
Who would have thought that this was turning into his performance review?
Yeah.
It's a really public domain for this. Usually we're not this nice to Michael.
It's true.
3 out of 5. He needs improvement.
But we've gathered AutoTrader's entire editorial team here today to talk about.
Hold on. We should say our staff team.
Our staff team.
We have 20 or so freelance contributors that mean a great deal to us and to you guys. If you read. Anything on AutoTrader.ca/editorial, you've seen lots of names: Jeff Wilson, Sammy Hajjasat, Jill McIntosh. The list goes on and on and on. We have so many great contributors, but the reality is we couldn't fit them all in this room.
It would be real cozy with all of our contributors. So we wanted to talk about a big part of our jobs as automotive experts who are hired by AutoTrader is to help Canadians kind of navigate the car buying process and the automotive world in general, because it can be very confusing. We like to make car stuff simple for Canadians, and that is the core of everything we do.
Guys, she cannot say those words without the little hand flourish.
It's impossible.
Literally impossible.
Have you tried? It's hard to.
I literally
Making
can't.
car stuff simple for Canadians.
Yeah, absolutely.
It just goes up. It's,
And we all take what we do very seriously. And interestingly, we are all trained journalists. We are all professionally trained journalists. Michael, the intern, and I went to the same journalism school. Dan and Sebastien went to different ones. But that kind of really, it helps us do our jobs.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's definitely a good, bedrock for whether it's automotive. I mean, for me personally, and I know Seb as well, we both did the community paper thing, which is really great. I think for a lot of, young up and coming journalists, is a great way to really kind of get your hands dirty and get involved.
I don't know if this was your experience, but if you think internet comments are bad, try having people just come to your office and look at you and say, "You got this wrong."
Yeah.
It affects you.
It's definitely a more engaged form of, because you really are part of the community.
Totally.
But to work my way through that, I was a court and crime reporter, and to be where I am now, but a lot of what we all learned as, through our schooling and through the early days of journalism still very much applies to what we do. A lot of people just think, oh, you guys just get to drive fancy cars and whatever. But I mean, the seriousness with which we approach our jobs is no different here than it was, when we were working at community newspapers and you were interning at the National Post and whatever. It's like, just because the kind of the subject matter is different doesn't mean that we don't apply the same ethics and principles to what we do now as we do for different topics.
And I do think that that's one of the big things about AutoTrader is the heavy focus on consumer-oriented topics. I think that has a lot to do with you and your editorial direction, but the focus on trying to be as welcoming to other people, to like everybody who reads and who needs to buy a car as possible, and the focus on trying to make things simple and trying not to be too, nerdy about, or getting nerdy where it matters, but also not trying to be too esoteric.
Yeah, just
really
very
important.
consumer focused.
Yes.
Simple, make it easy to understand. I think, Michael and I have had that conversation, right? Like when you first started writing reviews, that I was like, listen, like, keep it simple. No, don't get into the weeds of, sounding too much like an enthusiast. Obviously, I think you need to care about cars and have an interest in them to do this job, but you don't want to alienate readers by writing in a way that they don't feel like they're part of the club. You know?
Yeah, and I fell into that trap, I think, early in my career because I didn't really have many mentors to look up to help me like define my voice and my process for reviewing cars. And so I fell into that trap of like trying to write like everyone else who was out there, which means that I sounded like a car bro. And the result of that was that I probably excluded a lot of people from that content. They landed on my article, didn't understand what was going on, left and never came back, right?
Now, I do want to say though, right, there's a time and a place for it to a certain extent. Of course. We dial it back no matter what. But I mean, if you're reviewing a car like the Integra Type S, right, the average consumer probably isn't shopping for an Integra Type S. So I think you can take some liberties and go down that path a little bit. But what we never like to do is make people feel we're not gatekeepers, right? And it's like, if you don't understand, I always say this, right? Like that this idea that some auto journalists have of like, if you don't know an engine code for some obscure car, that it's like you're not a real one. And it's like, get the hell out of here. Like, that's so stupid.
That's very gatekeepy. I've always hated that attitude when it comes to what we do.
Yeah.
So we really try to open it up for people. And as journalists, we have to kind of adhere to a certain level of like ethics and professionalism, but also our responsibility as journalists is to Canadian car shoppers. It's not to automakers. It's not even to AutoTrader. It is to like people who we want to help by giving them unbiased expert car advice. And that is something that we take so seriously doing what we do, whether it's through our YouTube channel, our car reviews, our written stuff, even this podcast. It might seem very casual, but we put so much like love and care and attention into this stuff. And it's really just to help you guys kind of navigate this very confusing world of cars.
It's also why, more often than not, we do review, fun cars and unobtainable cars and all of that stuff. But more often than not, we opt for the Toyota Corollas and the Honda CR-Vs and the Ford F-150s because they're the ones that matter more. What we strive for isn't clickbait. It's not what's going to generate traffic, because I mean, and I don't mean this disparagingly to other outlets, right? But it's easy to say, oh, like if we review that Supra or Lamborghini or whatever, that's going to it's sexy. That's going to bring people in. But it's like, sure. But for us, it's what's going to help more people, right? And more people buy Corollas than, Supras and Lamborghinis combined in a year. So of course we're going to go with the one that matters to more people.
I don't know about you guys, but I do actually find sometimes the more regular cars are easier to review, or it's easier to say something about them than it is to say about like a 911 or something. Because like 911 fast. But
that's all you need to know.
But that you can't write 1,000 words about that. And whereas something like a Corolla, you know exactly what it's competing against. It's much easier to find within its competitive set. It's much easier to be like, oh, it does this one thing very well, and it doesn't do this other thing very well. And I find it easier to sort of dig in and get excited about the small changes. And also, just personally, it feels like the things that I'm saying actually matter. Whereas when I just drove my first 911 as a week-long review, and like that's awesome. It's fun. It's like a huge perk of the job, and like I'm sure that some people are going to read that and be like interesting, but also like they've already made up their mind.
That's the thing. That's why I almost prefer driving a lot more mainstream cars, because I feel like I'm actually helping people. Whereas if I'm reviewing something that's really fancy, it's like those people have already made up their minds. Like if they're going to buy a Lamborghini, they've already decided that,
Totally.
right? They don't need my article to tell them whether or not it's a good idea.
But then conversely, and I would be interested to kind of see how, Michael feels about this, is like those cars, maybe not the first time, but it can be a challenge to write about them when you feel like they've been written about ad nauseum. When there's 8 million Toyota Corolla reviews out there, how do you make yours stand out? So like Michael, as a relative newcomer, how do you try to make, or is that even a consideration for you?
I wouldn't say I consider it, because I just kind of go in pretty blind. Well, I'll research the car itself, but I won't read reviews. I won't watch reviews. I mean, I may have seen them in passing, but I sort of just go into the car ready to experience whatever it offers me. Like I'll just go in and say objectively what's good, what's bad, what I like about it. I don't really have biased opinions based on the brand or whatever the model is.
But I mean, like, do you struggle with the hook ever with like a car that you feel like has been done before?
Sometimes, but I sort of just try to just express what I feel about it, really. I don't really consider as like, has this been said already about the
No, that's good.
Corolla or whatever?
Yeah, that's a good way to go. My thing is, the way I always describe it, right, for myself and how I think others should approach it, right, is like treat yourself like a sequestered juror. So, and I know that sounds silly, but it's like this idea that you need to like block out the noise. You need to not read about what other people think about that vehicle, because whether intentionally or not, it could end up, seeping into your thoughts. So for me, it's about like you said, your opinion. It's about what you think, which also brings me to the other one of like objectivity and subjectivity. It is a delicate balance in what we do.
I will say that I think that I agree with you that does pose a challenge to the writer when, you're writing about whatever, the 2024 Civic, that's no different than the 2023 Civic. That can be difficult to do. But I think that that's one of the benefits to the readers is that we do that we do most of those mainstream cars every year, and also oftentimes with different writers. And the thing about a car is that it is just a subjective experience.
Yes.
The things that I like aren't necessarily the things that you like. And so it is nice for readers, I think, to have those different perspectives and see, like, on a Civic, this is consistently an issue, and this is consistently seen as a positive. But these things are different, and maybe I agree more with, maybe I agree with more with Dan than I do with Michael.
But my approach to it more so now, and again, like if you're driving something like a 911 or whatever, I do think it's an opportunity to get more into like the what do I like about it? How do I feel about it? Whereas for me, more than anything else, what underlies the whole review is like the basics, right? So, not just cargo room, but the usability of that room,
Totally.
Right? Lift over height. That doesn't matter if you're tall, if you're short, if you're skinny, if you're heavy. Like it's just those things that affect the everyday usability and user friendliness of the vehicle. Because I always frame that, for me being a tall guy, that I'm like, sure, look, I can't fit comfortably in the back seat, but that's sort of like the test of the limit, right? Because then if you're putting your kids in the back, that they're going to have more than enough room, or if you have growing, teenagers that suddenly shoot up 4 inches over the summer, and it's like now that vehicle that you've bought is very uncomfortable for them, right? So I try to like take that approach of like, how does this matter to that person, as opposed to just me coming into it and being like, well, I don't like this interface, right? It's like, and I don't mean this as a knock on you. I mean this as a compliment. You don't like massaging seats. but you don't write that in your reviews.
No, because
You
it's so personal to me.
Exactly. And it doesn't, to me, the important part is noting, does it have massaging seats? And then do they work well? Or are they, just the kind of like half-ass type, pun not intended.
Wasn't it?
Okay.
Wasn't
maybe
it
was.
kind of intended?
Maybe it
Little bit
was. But yeah, it's like, if they're not very well executed,
Yeah.
That's what matters.
That's what matters more than you being like, well, I don't like them. It's like, okay, cool.
Yeah, and so when we review cars, like our AutoTrader format has like a pretty strict format. We have 10 different categories that we must look at when we're reviewing a car. It's stuff from like styling, power, driving feel, features, safety,
Jodi,
practicality.
don't read them. You
comfort.
should know these off the top of your head.
There's so many of them though.
Guys, she quizzes Michael in the office. She's like, give me the 10 parameters. And if he doesn't name them, she doesn't let him eat lunch that day. It's crazy
It's
how
true.
how tight of a ship Jodi runs.
It is. And we do this, and a lot of those categories are very subjective.
Yes.
But most of them are objective. And even
Yeah.
the subjective ones, we try to approach with an objective sensibility.
Yeah. Do you think I could name them all? Okay. Styling, power, driving feel, fuel economy, comfort, practicality, user friendliness, safety, features, and value.
Wow.
Boom.
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 I mean, if you couldn't remember them all as our road test editor, I would be very upset.
The funny thing is, sometimes when I'm writing, I'll be like going through and I'm like, okay, just did the power, just did the driving feel. I'm like, what is the last one? And the one that I forget more often than not is comfort.
That's so interesting to me
And I
because that's
don't
such a
know-
big deal for you.
I know, but it's usually because, okay, we don't have a word count. Jodi's always big on the whole, like, write what you think it needs,
To tell your story.
but
Yeah.
within reason, of course. We don't want 3,000 word reviews. But because you do have to try to get a little bit, creative sometimes, where a paragraph about styling might then have a little bit of comfort because you're getting into the interior materials on the seats and whatever.
You're setting the table.
Exactly. So then you almost feel like, well, I've covered that part. And same thing with driving feel, right? Comfort and driving feel in terms of on-road performance, there is some overlap there. So if you've already kind of gone over that, sometimes it can be, because one thing I hate is laying out like I would never have them all written out and then be like, okay, now let me fill this hole.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's
because
how
to
I
me,
do it.
because I think, there
But I
should be.
rearrange them as I go.
See, but I think the flow of a story, that thread should naturally, weave its way in and out as opposed to, plugging and playing.
I have them at the bottom of the story and I cross them out as I get to them.
There you go. See, everybody's got a different process. Michael, what's your
What's
process?
your process?
I just have all of them like empty and then I fill them as I go along because otherwise I think I'll forget one
That's
of them.
what I do.
It's my favorite.
Because I always do forget one of them.
Is it
and
comfort?
User friendliness, usually.
Wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Because I just never think about the infotainment directly.
This
I don't know.
goes to so guys, we talk about Michael and his the way he
Here we
interacts
go.
with technology.
Dan's about to get mean, but in
No,
a playful
no,
way,
not
in a
mean.
friendly way.
I just don't. It's like I just assumed. I don't know. I don't have. I'm in my. I guess I'm crossing into my late 30s now. So I don't hang out with people in their early 20s.
Michael's the only young person that I hang out with.
Yeah, and so it's like I just assumed that they're all tech savvy because they grew up around this technology and whatever. But Michael, when it comes to tech, is like, Jodi calls him a Luddite.
I mean, so there was an article about this, about how people your age, like Gen, what are you, Z?
Z, yeah.
Z? What?
Z, what are you, American?
Oh my
For
God,
that,
his
only for
internship
that.
just ended.
Wow, bye. No, bye, Michael. Where was I going with that?
You read this article.
Oh yeah, and it said that Gen Z basically have no
You did it
computer.
too.
Sorry. Oh, I just did it. I said Z. They don't have the computer skills because none of them grew up with computers. They all had phones and tablets.
But in fairness, and we had this discussion and Michael had a similar experience to me. And I think you said the same thing where it was like, we had a computer when I could be wrong about the year, but I think it was like 95. We got a computer, but it was really like, for work. We had a couple. I remember we had Load Runner, which was a sick game. But other than that, it was really for schoolwork and whatever.
Yeah.
We didn't get internet until I think it was the summer between grade 8 and grade 9. So my parents weren't.
That's pretty late, actually.
Yeah, my parents were we weren't, a tech family. We weren't it was, and I was I was outdoors all the time. My brother, loved reading. And so it was we weren't in a rush to get, even for having, gaming systems. We had an N64, but we weren't latest and greatest getting every console. We just kind of if my parents, they got us the N64, so we could play GoldenEye and Mario Kart and stuff. But then after that, for example, I didn't get another console for I don't know, probably 5 years when I got a PS2. And I think, Michael, you said kind of the same thing. You weren't a computer-centric household, right?
No, we were, but, my parents both work with computers. My dad's IT, my mom's a graphic designer. So they wouldn't let me touch computers because they thought they were addicting and I shouldn't interact with them. So
it's probably smart.
I mean, history has proven them correct.
That's fair. But that's why I guess I'm not the most tech savvy. Also, if I had an issue, I'd just take it to my parents and they'd sort it out in 2 seconds.
That does make it a lot easier.
But I think maybe it is telling that the whole user friendliness thing, the reason why that one is forgotten for you for infotainment in the story is because tech isn't something that's very front of mind for you.
Well, I feel it's mainly because I just drive such an old car with no tech. So to me, the tech is the speedometer in my car because that's all it has. But yeah, I just don't really think it's we have radar guided cruise control and whatnot. I do test them, but it's not my immediate thought as opposed to what engine it has.
So remind me, what was the first car that you reviewed for us?
The QX80.
QX80.
Yeah.
So was that a big shock for you getting into a car that is so high tech, but also very luxurious and way bigger than something you're used to?
No, not really. Actually, it took me I figured it out pretty quickly just because I watch a lot of car reviews. So I kind of know what to expect generally of a modern car. And also my dad just always has a spaceship of a car. So I'm kind of used to, all the features. And it took me, it was pretty quick to figure it out. The size was a bit of a jarring thing because the QX80 is a tank and I had to really squeeze it in my driveway. But
did you have to fold the mirrors in or was that you? Somebody recently said that they because they park in a laneway.
I used to park in a laneway.
Oh, maybe
where I had
that's
to fold
what
the
it
mirrors
was.
in.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I tried to, when I was moving into that place, I used to have a 86 GMC pickup truck, and I tried to get it down between the houses with all the confidence of somebody who's not going to do it. And then I got stuck. I got jammed in the house. Fortunately, one of the doors was primer gray, so it was just not a big deal. But it was on July 1st, whatever, many years ago, so it was really hot, huffing all the stuff all the way back. But
oh my God.
Yeah.
Fun.
I didn't do that with any press cars. All press cars left my home in pristine condition.
That's actually a good point too.
That's
of
true.
What happens because listen, stuff does happen to press cars. So it's where is the moral obligation as well as the professional courtesy. A lot of times, so I don't know. I guess maybe we go back to the basics on this because, and this reminds me of that comment on the Hyundai Ioniq 9 first drive video that I did. It had manufacturer plates, Ontario plates on it, but the video was shot in BC because that's where the media drive event was. And this guy was racking his brain and he's I called all the dealers on Vancouver Island and in the Vancouver area to ask, and they said they don't have any. Did you drive this thing all the way from Ontario and whatever? So how this works, because I guess we sometimes lose sight of those things that we consider so simple, but maybe don't make sense. So how this works is for the vast majority of, for all automotive journalists and most even YouTubers that you see out there, we get our press vehicles, the vehicles we test, come from the OEMs themselves. So we don't go to dealers. We don't borrow them from dealers. We don't rent them. How it works is they have a media fleet available to members of the media, and we book vehicles generally for a week at a time in the States, they get vehicles delivered. We pick them up from various locations. And so in Toronto, they're throughout the GTA. And yeah, you sign waivers and all of these disclaimers that you're going to, A, write something or do a video or whatever, but then B, if there's any serious damage, you're, responsible for the deductible and all that stuff. But minor damage that isn't insurable, I think, the onus absolutely is on us. Even if you get something like a rock chip in a windshield, to tell the press fleet manager about it, because not only, did it happen on your watch, but there are other people like you lined up to test that vehicle that this is going to impact their loan. Mm-hmm. So it's like, this is one of those things, right, where we owe it to each other, not just in this room, but in the industry, to be kind of looking out, because it's like, A, it's not your vehicle. You borrowed it. And then B, if somebody else is trying to get that same coverage that you're providing to your readers or viewers, you should be making sure that you're taking good care of it. And when something happens, to let them know so it can be addressed.
Yeah. So the understanding is that we like to treat these press cars as if they were our own vehicles. So we don't do crazy stuff with these vehicles that we wouldn't do to our own cars. No. And that's just a professional courtesy. Michael, what did I tell you before you did your first road test? Like, what were the rules that I had listed off to you? Do you remember?
Just like treat the car well. Not exactly, but just take care of it. I guess.
I told you to take care of it. I said return it clean and full of gas.
Yes.
I said if anything goes wrong, let the PR person know immediately. Let me know immediately.
Yeah.
And these are kind of like professional codes that we just follow.
The number of times like where vehicles have come back and then that fleet manager is like, I had no idea, gonna have to cancel the loan, or if I find damage, that is something that, I understand if they're quickly trying to turn that vehicle around, they might not have noticed it. But yeah, it's like, because the job, again, we're trying to present the vehicle in the best way possible, and I don't mean that make it look good. I mean, think about it. If you're shopping for a vehicle and you click on one of our reviews, you go to AutoTrader and you see it, do you want photos of a dirty car with fingerprints and scrapes?
It's the accuracy that we're after, not making it look good. We just want it to be the most accurate representation possible of what a consumer will get.
Exactly. So, right? That is definitely part of it. That goes to like our obligations. But that also, I think, helps to explain where we get these vehicles that we test.
That's a great question, because a lot of people don't know that.
And I think especially working for AutoTrader.
Yeah, people just assume that I work at AutoTrader, that I can just like get discounts on cars or like
go
walk
to like
into
the
a
dealer and say
borrow
like, can
one.
we?
No.
Yeah, so because that happens a lot. If I'm shooting photos or video and they see the AutoTrader plate covers, people in passing they're like, oh, did you get that from like the dealer down the street? I'm like, no, it belongs to. Fill in the automaker.
I always is this car for sale? I'm like, well, kind of, but
not really in the way you think it is.
Yeah, not really in the way you think it is. So, but there is a code, like sort of it's not a secret code. We're trying to make it as clear as possible. But on our website, when we have 2025 Land Rover Defender 130 review, that's that
what
sort of.
What a great review!
It was a great review. It's live today. So that's sort of that scenario where we've gone to pick it up. We did it for a week. We get to drive it. We also have first drive reviews.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Where we are going to a location like the Ioniq 9 to drive it for a shorter period of time, which is why it's not a full, points review.
Yeah, where it's like, it's a limited time. It's the automaker is introducing it. That's the other thing is we try, it's easy to use the language, right, of people. It's like, on this first drive event, and I hate doing that. So I always, if a contributor has submitted that, I'll always change it to like the media launch event or something that makes more sense. Because if you have no idea what that is, and you read first drive event, it's like, okay, first drive for who? For anyone?
Yeah.
But yeah, so to Sebastian's point, we have first drive reviews are just like our initial hands-on, experience with the vehicle, and then we'll do a fully scored review at a later date once those vehicles are available to us locally.
Yeah, because when we are on these first drive events, we get like 2 hours tops, maybe sometimes in a car.
Sometimes it's a full, like that Ioniq 9, it was like I had it for the whole day. Like it
and
was
that's
like
great.
9 hours.
Yeah. But we still can't get the amount of impressions that we would get if we were spending a whole week with it, living with it.
Absolutely. That's one thing I've heard some stories of people talking about, quick turnarounds and like, oh, I have everything I know everything I need to know about the vehicle within a couple hours. That is just not possible. It's impossible.
No, at some of these first drive events, they won't even let you park it. But that's a huge part of the experience, right? If a vehicle isn't easy to park, that's bad news.
Oh, but I meant like other, journalists being like, I only need a couple hours with it. And it's like, no, you don't, because that's the whole reason why we borrow them for a week, is so that you can live with it every day.
Yeah.
And then you realize the thing. And to me, it's just like I always say, if you're shopping for a new vehicle, test drive it in the day as well as at night to see the lighting performance and what the visibility is like. Well, it's the same thing. If you're saying, well, I only need a couple hours, but how do you know? Look at, if you only had a couple hours, here's a prime example. Volkswagen's terrible interface with the no backlit buttons.
That's a great one.
You would have no idea that was a problem if you only drove it for a couple hours during the day.
Yeah.
Right.
So I cry foul on that one.
I mean, that's a good point. I think in general, what we're looking for when we're reviewing cars is, yes, we have those 10 categories, but the overarching theme is how good is a car at doing its intended job?
Yes.
And that's the main thing we look at. And so I once got a lot of heat because I gave a Mitsubishi Mirage like an 8 out of 10 for power. It's a slow car, and it's not a secret that it's an economy car, but I'm not judging it against a 911.
Yeah.
I'm judging it against everything else it competes with.
Yeah.
And in comparison to all of those cars, it was pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, like, I think it was important for us to differentiate, and to make clear that when we review cars, we're comparing them to what they compete with, and not the whole landscape.
Yeah. So I got, we're coming to the end here. I think the other thing I would say is like what else goes into it is like, being able to be subjective and objective, like I said. Another, key for me anyways to this is like, it's not just about the writing skills of the video presentation. It's also photography. It's like, being able to kind of do it all is important for this job. And obviously every outlet, if you work for, I don't know, a car and driver type magazine, you're not expected to take your own photos. They have staff photographers and whatever. But for us, it's, that's not a luxury that we're afforded. But I also like that because it helps you tell the story that much better. If there's something that you like or don't like about a vehicle, or you want to draw attention to, well, of course, you shooting photos of it. And a good one is when the Cadillac Vistic, when the seating position was so terrible that the steering wheel cut off, some of the information. And yes, that's something that's unique to being a taller person. But for me to be able to take that photo to show my actual perspective is something that you can't necessarily assign to a photographer to do for you.
Exactly.
And of course, press photos, like supplied photos, are never going to highlight those negatives.
Absolutely.
So that's why we do them ourselves.
And I will say, this is paying you a compliment. Every time in a story that you point out something that can be shown visually, there's always a photo of it, and I really appreciate it.
Hey, I'm because again, it's like to just say it. My thing is like prove it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Don't just tell.
Show, don't tell.
Exactly. So.
We don't have an Ask an Expert today, so we can kind of keep this one going.
Wait, Michael. Ask three experts.
Oh, yeah.
Michael, do you have any questions as you continue your journey, especially into car reviews specifically? Putting you on the spot here.
You really are.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm not sure. I will come up with something.
Okay.
And
Okay,
I will submit something.
We'll come back to you on that.
You should, yeah. That's your assignment.
yeah.
Next, ask an expert.
Maybe I'll ask you guys, like, what makes reviewing a car challenging? Like, what's the thing that makes it difficult for you sometimes?
I'll say that even though we just like a generous amount of time for an automaker to lend us a vehicle, and I'm not complaining about it, but it's still only a week with a vehicle.
Yeah.
And it is hard to get to know all of a car's foibles in a week. It's hard to put it through every scenario it might go into. For a lot of cars, like in a week, I might just not go somewhere where there's like a gravel road. And like, not to say that that's important for every vehicle, but like, you know, it could be interesting to know. It could show off rattles. It could do all kinds of, you know.
Yeah.
So a week is a short amount of time to have with a car. And like, it's an amount of time where most new cars especially, shine.
Yeah, exactly. And this is why we don't really talk about reliability when we're doing
Yeah.
car reviews, because a lot of the times we are reporting on what we have experienced. And a lot of the times in that 1 week, nothing will go wrong.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why we don't talk about I know we get a lot of questions about that on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, big time. People are always like, "Why didn't you mention, you know, this part that I've heard is failing?" And it's like, but if it didn't fail for me, and that's not me trying to pretend it's not real, but it's like I can't write about or talk about an issue that I haven't experienced firsthand, because the other thing is like, yeah, there are, just like everything in life, there are lots of people that make a bigger deal out of something that isn't really that big of a deal. So if somebody says, "Oh, I've heard that this is a major problem," that's not enough for me to be like, well, this is a major problem, I better talk about it.
You mean people are going on the internet complaining about things that don't matter? What do you say?
You know,
Crazy.
I'll bring it up now. So the worst vehicle I've ever reviewed, in terms of like, you know, just its execution, doing the job it's supposed to do and not doing it well, was the Dodge Hornet RT, the plug-in hybrid version of the Dodge Hornet. And there was a comment just a couple days ago on that video that said that I'm a terrible journalist because of
Harsh.
what I said in that review. And it's like, first of all, I stand by what I said, but just because I'm not praising a vehicle, that doesn't make me terrible at my job. That's me doing my job, and that's potentially protecting you as a consumer from buying something that's filled with flaws.
And that's the whole reason behind what we do. So it's crazy to me when people are like, "Oh, you're just being overly critical on a car." I'm like, that's my job.
Yeah. What's the opposite? Is they just want you
Just
to
praise
say
it
nothing but good
nonstop?
things. And those are the people that are looking. And that guy was a prime example. Is that he left another comment talking about how this great deal he scored on a Hornet for himself. So it's like, okay, dude, you're not here looking for, you know, any sort of professional advice. What you're looking for is to confirm that you made the right call. And when you see somebody saying something different to that, it gets you all fired up, and then you accuse me of being bad at my job. Like, no, man, I'm pretty damn good at my job.
You're
great
you
at
are.
your job.
You're good at your job, Dave.
I appreciate it, guys.
No problem. We're here to pump up your tires, man. Let's go.
I mean, our team is a very supportive one.
It's a very
That's true.
supportive team.
Believe it or not, Michael.
Come on, we made it this whole episode and nobody made a comment about his youth or things that
Until
happened
now.
before he was born
That's true.
or anything.
We usually say that everything happened before Michael was born.
Because most of it did.
Yeah.
It's not true.
Yeah.
It's true of all of us.
Semi-true.
A lot has happened, yeah. What would be a deal breaker for you guys when reviewing a car? If there's one thing that sticks out where you would like, I would never recommend this car because of this one thing.
Oh, honestly, poor lighting.
Oh,
Really?
interesting.
Because that to me
Yep.
is it. That doesn't matter. That, you know, that doesn't affect, you know, drivers of certain sizes or whatever. It's like everybody drives their vehicles, you know, during the day and at night. And if the lighting is terrible, then that to me is just a no. And there are some where it's like, remember that when I reviewed the Hyundai Tucson and it has automatic lighting.
Right.
And it was like a crazy pea soup fog day. Like you could not see the vehicle in front of you. And I noticed that it was in the automatic setting and the lights didn't come on. So that to me is one of those, like, that's a huge red flag.
That's a big
Any
one.
sort of lighting issue, because that affects safety.
Yep.
So that would absolutely be my like deal breaker.
That's a good one.
That's a good
Do you
one.
have a deal breaker, Michael?
For me, it's more it's just not a very compelling overall package, I guess. Or if it's too expensive for what the car delivers, then I wouldn't really recommend it because that sort of makes it less competitive. I would say I haven't reviewed many cars, and that's been the biggest deal breaker for the ones I have reviewed so far.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
For me, I'm not sure if I'd call it a deal breaker, but I think that getting the basics right, I think that pedal feel, like getting the brakes so that they are consistent and easy to use is very important. And I think that it is like a problem with a lot of modern cars that if if you don't have any brake feel, it's hard to brake smoothly. It's hard to drive smoothly. And like, I don't care how comfortable your seats are. If I'm rocking back and forth, like my passengers are all going to want to puke. So I think that getting the basics of not like sporty driving, but just like getting the basics of, can I pull up to a red light smoothly?
That's
Can
just
I pull
safe
away
driving.
smoothly?
Yeah.
Yeah. How about
Those are all good ones. I think for me, something being too expensive would be a big one. Like if it doesn't do enough to justify the price, that would be a big red flag for me.
Yeah, but my thing with that, honestly, is like, who am I to tell you, you know, as a shopper? Like, it's one thing if I say, listen, there are other vehicles in that segment that offer more for less. But I mean, this is the whole reason why the premium market exists.
Well, no, it's different for me in the premium market versus the mainstream market. So I'm talking about in the mainstream market.
Sure, but I mean, who am I? Look at the Honda Civic.
Yeah.
Right? It's got a great reputation for reliability. You know, it looks good. It functions well. The hybrid is super efficient. But it's also very expensive. But that's not, I would not call that a deal breaker, because if you feel comfortable spending
that's
35
true,
grand on a compact car, all the power to you. I just don't think that that's, you know, good value.
I mean, I think, okay, so I do remember calling an infotainment system a deal breaker for me because it was awful to use. It was Acura's little, and Lexus had one like this too, a trackpad. And it was a deal breaker for me because using it was downright unsafe while you were driving. And that to me was like a no starter. So
Eyes up and out.
even more than the value thing is the safety thing of having a functioning and user-friendly infotainment system.
The user experience needs to be, you know, safe, sensible, you know, and just like it makes sense, right?
Okay.
So,
on the opposite end of the spectrum,
yes.
Does anybody have anything that they're just like, I do like it when that happens? Like, is there something that a car can do that's so charming that you're like, I'm willing to forgive it? Obviously not in your job. I know that we're all professionals and we all look over that. For me, it was the 500e, the Fiat 500e. It was so cute. I really wanted to forgive it for a lot of sins.
And that's legit too, because even with my infotainment stuff, if the car, like in a sports car, for it doesn't matter as much to me.
Totally.
So it depends based on what kind of car I'm driving, how harsh I will be on a certain feature.
For sure.
Like I was just in the Supra. The Supra doesn't have a great infotainment system, but the rest of it was so good that I could forgive that.
And that's not the focus.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Again, like what we talked about earlier is this idea that, sure, but it's a Supra, it's a sports car, it's meant to be driven. I said that about, I don't remember what it was. I liked the fact, I think it was like the old Porsche infotainment that wasn't very good, but I'm like, it's mounted nice and low on the dash. You should just be ignoring that anyways and just focusing on the road ahead, because that car is built to be driven. If I'm driving a 911, I don't want to be fiddling around with the radio and Apple Car. I want to have the radio off, listen to that sweet exhaust, and just enjoy a nice winding road somewhere, you know? So
Totally. But I think that wraps up this episode, guys. If any of you have questions you would like to ask our team about how we review cars, why, what our process is, you can email expert@trader.ca. But thank you guys for joining me. This was really fun to have all four of us on here.
Super fun.
Everybody, drive safe, and we'll see you next time.
bye, guys.